Hello, I'm Brian from ThoughtSpot. We are super excited to partner with Dealerware to bring our data and AI analytics into the next generation of Dealerware to do exactly some of the things that Kyler was just talking about, removing friction from the customer experience. Brian said a similar thing. Your customers want to save time. How do we make it less painful, less paper? How do we automate that? And what we do at ThoughtSpot is we help companies bring the value of their data out to the hands of their customers in a very easy and simple way. To ask questions, they get answers. That sounds simple, but there was another slide Brian was showing earlier about you've got a DMS, you've got all the various different marketing systems. It's really hard to get that single view. When you ask a question, where does all that data come from? It's really hard to get that answer. Also want to thank you guys for inviting me to Texas. Texas is near and dear to my heart. Now, I'm from a place where they say you guys, not y'all. But my father is from South Texas, a little town called Alice, little city now, I guess, called Alice, not too far from Corpus. So in honor of that, I can't quite wear cowboy boots. It's a little fraudulent being a Northeasterner, but I do have some Chelsea boots on. So I love Texas, but specifically, I love Austin. And I've got a global role, and so I work with a lot of European folks. I'm over in London a lot. I'm going over to Australia in a couple weeks. And people always ask me, should I go to New York? Should I go to New York? And I say, no, go to Boston. Sorry, I'm biased. Go Pats. But then my next thing I say is, go to Austin. I think it's the most unique American city. It's such a cool mix of tech and food and ideas and like no freaking rules, and it's kind of awesome, right? So there's like this side of Texas, but what I think of is really this when I come to Austin. So I know there's some, billionaire AI, like millennials. This guy might be one of them. So this is from Austin City Limits in 2017 at Zilker Park. It was about 90 degrees, about 90% humidity, and this gentleman was offering free sweaty hugs. Struck me funny. And then this gentleman, I thought it would be interesting to get a picture with him. He was wearing a romp him, which is a male romper, which had a cat pizza starburst situation going on. And I don't know, to me, that's Austin, and it's super cool. And I love that, right? You're not going to see that in a lot of places. So you'll also notice in that picture, beard was just a little darker, maybe a little less gray. There's also some hair under that hat. So that was going back about 10 years. Let's go back a little bit further to when I was in college. I had a web design business. Yeah, that's the stuff there, right? I wanted to let that marinate for you guys a little bit. We are in those days, right? Do you guys remember like the 30 seconds to dial in to listen to that noise? But we knew we were on the edge of something. We didn't know it was coming, but we knew it was coming, and we knew it was exciting, and we knew it was cool to get connected to people. And even though it took 30 minutes to get anything done and actually like download things and transfer MP3 files over Napster, we knew it was going to change, right? We knew it was going to affect our lives, and I don't think anyone knew exactly how much that was going to change. Well, that's where we are with AI. I don't speak automotive, dealer, fleet management. Our company is kind of a horizontal platform, so there's a 5-letter technology company named after fruit that embeds us into their App Store ad exchange server. They're one of the most vertically integrated companies in the world, and they chose not to build what we do. They also did the same thing with cars. But it was super interesting to hear just all the AI talk today, because frankly, I wasn't expecting as much of it as I've heard. So we are in the early days of agentic AI, and there's tons of possibility and tons of promise. And the smart guys and girls from McKinsey say that the automotive landscape is going to transform more in the next 3 to 6 years than it has in the last 25. I definitely think that's true. I can tell you in my technology landscape, I've been selling analytics software for 25 years. It's changed more in the last 3 years than it has in a long time. It's changed more in the last 6 months than it has in a long time. It's scary. And That transformation is being driven by electrification. It's being driven by digitization. I bought 3 cars over this phone and not gone into a dealership. And then Trump took away the $7,500 tax credit, and I also live in a state where they were doubling that. Side note, love the electric cars. Great in states like California, where there's maybe a 20-degree temperature swing, kind of a Goldilocks zone between like February and August. In New England, it's more like a 52-degree temperature swing between the coldest month and the warmest month. So too many, what should be 3-hour drives to New York and Vermont turned into 5-hour drives. So I went the other way, and I went back to a Ford F-150, which has a 36-gallon gas tank on it, and I go 720 miles without stopping. So I don't know if there's any Ford folks in the room, but love that product. And the app is amazing. I was clinging on to my Tesla and my Rivian for so long because of the apps, but the Ford app is great. So I'm an early adopter, but I'm also ready to go back to old ways too. So that's true of automotive. It's also just true of businesses in general. So Gartner says 30% of organizations will be using AI in 3 or more of their business units in 4.5 years. I think that's way low. I can tell you, I work for a company that builds AI. I largely have a sales role. Because it's so easy, I have it's a little bit scary, but there's agents are like gremlins. Like you pour water on them, and at midnight, a bunch more of them pop up. Which one is the right one, which one is the wrong one. So there's going to need to be some governance behind it. And the other thing is just the way and the speed that things are changing. Like on the flight here, I built a web app for my sales teams that, I was a web developer in college. Something that would took me weeks, probably months. I did in 2.5 hours on my flight, mostly on my phone, using Claude and another app called Vercel, and put that out to the field, and now they're using it. So when they're talking to an automotive customer, here's the list of automotive customers that we have so they can name drop, and it's an agent. Super powerful. Took me 2 hours. So this is where we are right now. This is not one of those $300,000 Boston Dynamics police dogs that sounds like Brian might have as one of his dealerships. A little more low tech. But this is where we are, right? You choose your metaphor. We're putting the tracks down while we're driving the train. We're building the plane while we fly it. But it's exciting times, right? Because we're just ahead of the curve of what's coming, but there's so much possibility and potential for what's ahead of us and how that's going to do things like change the customer experience, improve our margins, change how cars are built. So in this case, he's building the track. But what's happening is, what happens when the track starts to build itself? Not because we asked it to, not because we programmed it to, but because it learned to. That's when we're going to go from agents, which are largely reactive, to autonomous. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my world, right? So I sell an analytics platform driven by AI for all kinds of companies. We do it for Apple Computer. We also do it for kind of low-tech companies. I wouldn't call them low-tech, but like Caterpillar dealers. We're in the DMS that they use for pushing data out to some of their customers. Things are changing, and they're changing quickly. It used to be humans were asking questions of the data, and when I got out of college, I was building Crystal Reports as one of my first jobs, but there was still kind of largely like the IT team would give the report, and you got what you get, and you don't get upset. My kids love when I tell them that. But you had to wait a long time if that report didn't suit your needs, and that's kind of changed, right? We've moved to dashboards, which the premise of dashboards was taking kind of the reports that IT controlled and moving those more into the lines of business. And that was kind of true, and I worked for companies that sold that stuff. But oftentimes you'd get to the end of the road, there'd be a filter, it wouldn't quite answer your question, and then you'd have to go back and ask someone, and you wouldn't get the answer, and what would you do? You'd quit. So where we're going is agentic. In ThoughtSpot specifically, our founders were from Google and Bing, and their core thesis as a company was, if we can do keyword-based search for the internet, which is a very unstructured data set, why can't we do that for work data, which is in structured databases? They started that about 10 years ago. About 3.5 years ago, Gen AI came along. So we had keyword-based search. Now we have natural language search, and that works great. Now we have Agentic search. We came out with something called Spotter, which you're going to see in a dealership product here shortly. That whole premise of you ask a question, you get an answer, that's here. That wasn't here a year and a half ago when I was at ThoughtSpot. It kind of worked. It didn't always work. What it used to do is it would give you what happened questions, right? That was the baseline. That was our expectations. You ask a what happened question, you get the answer. It might be right. Usually it was. It might take a while. Now it will tell you what happened. It will also tell you why did it happen. And what it does that it did not do about 3 months ago is it can do reasoning and perception. Tell you what should you do. So not what happened, not why did it happen. What should I do to optimize my CSAT scores, my customer experience, my revenue, optimize my margins. That's still kind of the agentic phase when you're asking it to do it. Where it's going is an autonomous phase where it's going to do all that for you and deliver outcomes. It's not going to wait on you. Now, of course, there's going to be governance and guidance, but it's going to actually do these processes for you. So how do we put that in a lens of a dealership or a fleet manager? So one of the things that's nice about Dealerware being as disruptive as they are, right, and taking those 15-minute paper processes to a 15-second mobile app check-in, is all that data is in a singular place, whether that's the loaner car, the subscriptions, the valets, the test drives. For AI to work well, it needs to be able to get to the data. And Dealerware can unlock that. So what does that actually mean? It means right now it can do proactive monitoring, so automatically using the telematics or the IoT data and updating the CRM when a car gets around a certain geofence, right? To update the CRM. Where it's going is it's just talking to one system. It could be multiple systems, checking against the CRM notes, pulling telemetry data. And where it's really going is there might be individual specialized agents that all talk to each other. We actually saw this. There's going to be an inspection agent, right? That's using computer vision to see, like, when this car came in, how does the bumper look? So if you put all that together, where is this going? And like full disclosure, I'm not an automotive guy. I took kind of some of my standard deck, took a little bit of what I know about Dealerware. I asked Google Notebook LM, give me a slide deck that makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to automotive and dealerships. Like, AI is coming, and it's coming in a big way. And I totally agree with one of the statements earlier that, at the end of the day, I tell my kids this. I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old daughter. Work hard, work smart. The people that use AI to their advantage, there's always going to be a need for smarter people. They're just using better tools and using them more efficiently. So potential, this is not too far down the road, I don't think at all, right? So you've got an image agent. You're pulling a car into the service bay. A loaner comes back. You can see there's damage on the bumper. It was returned. There's then a data agent that can say, okay, based on this vehicle, it's Sally. Here is her insurance with State Farm. It can then call a claims agent who can do the math to figure out what was the level of damage on that car by working with the image agent, and it can file a claim autonomously. And in parallel, a logistics agent can say, hey, we've got to pull this vehicle from the fleet because it needs to go get fixed. Let's pull one from the inventory so we have a fresh, clean loaner for our customers. This is real. This is not like Star Trek science fiction. I think you guys are seeing this, but this is coming, and it's not coming in the not too distant future. These are specialized agents that can all talk to each other and do things in an autonomous way, ultimately to make the experience better for customers. So where does your dealer operation stand? Just like any industry, some dealerships and fleet managers are going to be super progressive. I think we've heard from some of them today. Some of them are going to be a little stuck in the old ways. Legacy situation is typically the data is in lots of different places across spreadsheets or databases, or I know there's some pretty antiquated DMSs out there, I will say. 15-minute paper process, sunk costs for a manual expense process. Where Dealerware is moving things is to a singleized central platform, taking things from 15 minutes to 15 seconds with a mobile app, automated expense recovery, a single pane of glass. But eventually this is just going to be invisible. right? It doesn't matter where the data is, and that's one of the things that we can do is we can, if you ask a question, it can ask data, I guess, structured data in a database and source it, maybe against some of those customer experience benchmarks on the web, give you an answer. So we call that boundaryless and predictive. So that is where it's going, and ultimately the UI is just going to be kind of invisible to the customer. They're just going to have a better experience and get their time back, right? Time is ultimately the precious resource and probably the #1 driver of what people put in their reviews, whether they're positive or negative. All that said, you can do AI with any kind of data, but if you do AI against crummy data, you're going to get crummy, inaccurate answers. Autonomous agents require flawless, unified data to work and operate efficiently. And one of the things that Dealerware brings to the table, one of the reasons we're excited about this partnership, is the ability to bring all that together. So, 4 steps to agentic readiness. Focus on unique pain points. I think it's focus on margins of revenue or focus on customer experience and where are areas where AI could optimize that. Clean your data. As I just mentioned, your data needs to be good if you're going to put AI against it. Not everything's ready for it if the data's not there, and that's okay. Governance is super important. Just because you can create an agent for everything doesn't mean you should. And make sure you're not building lots of agents that overlap each other and do kind of similar things. And then you have to rationalize which ones are the good agents, and which ones are the bad agents. I don't know if you guys have had that experience with dashboards. I certainly did, and a lot of my customers did. Everyone can build a dashboard, it's great, but which one's the good dashboard? Which one's the bad dashboard? And then a big one is just, everything comes back to Jeff Bezos, right? But I love his bias towards action. If you're 70% right, just do it, because you can pivot. If you wait till you're 90% right, the amount of time that's going to take you to pivot, you're going to be waiting too long, right? So it's important. This is only accelerating, and the power of AI in products and services within automotive and fleet management is only going to be increasing. So the clock is ticking. Mainstream adoption of this is 3 to 6 years. Agentic AI, in terms of the software space, is expected to disrupt about it's expected to be a $47 billion market with 44% year-over-year growth. So dealerships that are progressive with their operations now will become the dominant mobility networks of the 2030s. The others are going to be left behind in the dial-up era. So that's what I had prepared today. I want to thank Dealerware for having us here. And we're going to have Diana up to take it from theoretical to actually showing what it looks like live.